The woke team up of the century occurred in just the past month. J.Ann Lopez of Black Girl Gamers hosted Sweet Baby Inc. CEO Kim Belair and The Verge reporter Ash Parrish to discuss how they are perpetual victims and that they aren't really wokeifying games. At least that is what Kim Belair had to say. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Roll this up over at thatparkplace.com. And we're going to specifically just focus on what Kim Belair had to say in this video that they have literally turned off the dislikes to. And I think they are clearly censoring the comments on the video. Let me pull that right up here so you can see right here. Dislikes have been disabled, and they are doing some massive censorious stuff with the comments. Only 2 have been approved. When I was looking at this morning, there are at least 3 on there. So I definitely feel like they are putting all kind of comments on this video behind some kind of block so that they are only manually approving the ones that they want to see, the ones that are positive about them. Kim Belair and Ash Parrish. If you want to watch this video for yourself, I do have the link in the article right here. I don't think they're actually allowing you to even embed the video. It wasn't populating for me on in this article. So I did link it here. So I'll have the link to the description to this article in the description below. But let's get to what Kim Belair had to say in this interview, where she immediately plays victim, does not mention at all that she tried to cancel Cabrutus Rambo. One of her employees, Chris Kindred, tried to cancel Cabrutus Rambo, tried to get his Steam account shut down, in effect advocating for theft, trying to steal all of the games that he paid for with his hard-earned money, tried to get that taken from him, and then tried to get the Sweet Baby Inc. detected Steam curator list shut down as well. But it's Kim Belair who tries to paint herself as the victim when in fact she was the aggressor and has always been the aggressor, which we're going to get to, citing her comments from that 2019 Game Developers Conference, as well as an interview she did with Inclusion FX back in 2021. Not to mention some of the other comments she has made in the past, where she has made it abundantly clear that she is no fan of white male characters, and she wants to change that and take over the video game industry with her woke ideology. But this is what she said. I think of us almost as patient zero of this wave of Gamergate. When I think of it, where it started, it was kind of the week that we had announced that we were on both Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2, which are 2, I think, popular games among the game community and players in general. This is absolutely not true. Spider-Man 2 has been resoundingly rejected by many gamers. It did sell well, I will say that, but it didn't sell as well as the first Spider-Man game. The sales that we've seen are about half of the original Spider-Man game. And the people that did play Spider-Man 2 panned it for its injection of woke ideology, its uglification of Mary Jane. Those were some of the big complaints. The fact that it didn't even get Miles Morales's home country correct, or his ethnicity correct, his nationality correct. I think he's American, but I can't remember. I think he's Puerto Rican, and they use like the Cuban flag or something like that. I remember they got that wrong. And Alan Wake 2 obviously has not even broken a profit yet. Still hasn't managed to bring in any money for the game's developer Remedy, and obviously that game is full of wokeness with race swapping, Saga Anderson, and then obviously most of the game is, I guess, you playing Saga Anderson instead of Alan Wake. So the game that's called Alan Wake 2 doesn't really feature you playing as Alan Wake all that much. So I think her assessment there is wrong based on the actual evidence, based on reality. Nevertheless, she continues saying, immediately, I think the targeting began with this kind of like, we found this secret, sinister website from Sweet Baby Inc. Meanwhile, we're on Twitter like, I'm just so excited to let people know that we worked on these 2 really great games. No one thought your website was secret. Sinister, yes, because we'll get to this, because you literally admit that you're pushing the woke agenda on your website. That's what you say. It's what you say that is the mission of your company. She goes on and says this, and the assumption was essentially made that our work on that had not been story or narrative or character related. It had been to make a black character exist in Alan Wake 2 and to put pride flags in Spider-Man 2. And that was kind of like the assumption that we had wokeified the video games. Well, you did that 100%. And I don't think anyone was saying that you didn't work on story or narrative or character related. I think that is exactly what you did. And you did that to wokeify the games. It wasn't just about race swapping Saga Anderson. It wasn't just about putting pride flags in Spider-Man 2. It is a lot of all of those things combined and how the characters interact with each other, the dialogue, etc. I think that's exactly what people thought. And you're literally just trying to gaslight people into buying your narrative and trying to paint people as racists and homophobes. That's exactly what you are trying to do, Kim Belair. You're an idiot because people have been trying to do that all the time. And those labels no longer work. Gamers are not afraid of those labels anymore. They don't really care about them. And they're just sick of people like you trying to gaslight them, trying to lie to them, trying to paint them as these ists and phobes when they just don't like your woke ideology. They don't like the evil that you are trying to promote. And that's exactly what she is trying to promote. We'll explain a little bit later why this is woke ideology is so evil. I've talked about it on a number of occasions before, but we're going to go over and look at what Bishop Barron has to say about it. I think he does a really good job of explaining why it is so evil, but we'll get to that towards the end of this video here. But she went on and said this: as a company, we worked on over 80 games together, so there was plenty of fodder for people to start going, oh, is this the reason that all of these games are now woke? That they have people of color in them or queer people or any marginalized identities at all? Or even sometimes they perceive like, oh, this woman's design is not quite as it used to be, and I think it used to be hotter. So there's a lot of stuff that's been put on us, both things that we did work on, things that we didn't. And then we kind of just became shorthand for the wokeification of gaming. That's exactly what you have become. Sweet baby detected is synonymous with woke detected or DI detected. They are the same thing because that is exactly what your company does. And there are lots of other companies that do that. And clearly there are lots of major developers that hire people like you to do this, that they're also embracing the woke ideology. And they are now paying the price for it. One need look no further than Concord and Firewalk Studios shut down in less than 2 weeks after fully embracing woke ideology with pronoun nonsense, DEI, character designs, etc. So let's go back, though, and remind Kim Belair about what she said in 2019 during the Game Developers Conference. She made it abundantly clear that her entire company's goal was to wokeify games. She said this: none of what we're doing is about ticking boxes or about a veneer of wokeness. We actually have to care about making this stuff. So she says it's not about a veneer. Well, what does that mean? If it's not about a veneer, it is about wokeness. It is about pushing wokeness. She literally admitted it in 2019. So yes, there's a reason why your company is synonymous with wokeifying games, because you literally admit that's what you do. That's what your company does. You said this in 2019. That's what you said, Kim Belair. You're not going to gaslight us. We have the facts. We have the truth. They are on our side. You oppose the truth. You lie to try and shape a narrative to convince people of your evil ideology. And you hate people that oppose you, that stand in the way of you having power. In fact, during that presentation, that 2019 presentation, Belair made it clear that she would weaponize cancel culture to achieve her goals. This is what I said. She hates people that stand in the way of her achieving power, because that's ultimately what she wants. She just wants power. She wants power and control. And she will use any kind of devious, nefarious means to get it. And she made it abundantly clear that one of them is using cancel culture to get what she wants. She said this: if you're creative working in AAA, which I did for many years, put this stuff up to your higher ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for, when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want. Well, what is that? What would happen? Well, she tells us, because they have to consider, I say that out loud as a joke, but it's actually very, very true, because if you start to consider the people who are player and audience facing, and you have to deal with mitigating harm and with keeping the sentiment around their game and their project positive, there's like a genuine value that you can impress upon them both ethically and financially. You could say this is important. She's literally talking about cancel culture. Remember, this is 2019. She's talking about mobilizing Twitter mobs to attack game developers if they don't push her woke agenda. That is exactly what she's talking about. Terrify them with the threat of a Twitter mob. We've now found out that you embrace this stuff and it's absolutely financially disastrous. It's also unethical. It's immoral because it's literally promoting racism. But she elaborates, it's also a valid discussion to have because if you're working with a thin narrative budget and you work in AAA, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised or dismayed by the amount of money that marketing can give you. So she literally is trying to enrich herself, get the power, get the control. Look at how much money they'll give you. Look at how much money they'll give you. That's what she's saying there. Terrify them and they'll give you a bunch of money. We've seen this. I mean, this is they want to call people like me grifters, but they're the ones who are actually grifting. They use identity politics to extract money from these companies on the threat that they will call them racists, homophobes, transphobes, isms, etc. That's what they do. We saw this all during the Black Lives Matter stuff. Kim Belair is clearly doing this here in 2019. She's still trying to do it. She's still trying to do it to this day. But that's her whole game plan. That wasn't the only time she expressed such aims. As I said earlier, she did this interview with Inclusion FX where she said she wanted to take over the video game industry. This is what she said. Today, what we do is writing, narrative design, story building, story breaking as our first and foremost. But on a secondary level, we work very hard to get marginalized talent into the industry to protect them the way that we would want to have been protected, to lift them up, and to get them into an industry where they're too often shut out. And basically, I think to take over in the hopes that some really dope people will be able to lead into a kind of a new era for an industry that's been, you know, the same way too long. Well, we know what she thinks about that. It's too white. She said that on a number of occasions. I didn't actually include it here, but I had the links to these articles right here. I don't know. Yeah, white male gamers are to picky babies. She's also said things where she wants to remove white males as protagonists from video games. So that's exactly what she's talking about there, where it's been the same way too long. But she clearly wants to take over the industry, get all of her communist Marxist buddies, woke ideologues, embedded within all of these major corporations, and they're the ones that are making the video games. And I think she's kind of succeeded for the most part. You look at companies like Ubisoft, you look at Activision, you look at Blizzard, all these major corporate. I mean, you even look at Capcom, a lot of the major Japanese companies, Square Enix, they've all embraced this stuff. Bandai Namco, to their detriment, but they all have. For the most part, they've all embraced the woke ideology. Even Nintendo of America has gone all in on it. And as we're seeing this year, financial disaster when you embrace this stuff. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, Concord. Those are the two biggest ones. I think Star Wars Outlaws has not done well. All of the metrics point to it not doing well. Ubisoft, one of the biggest promoters of woke ideology in their video games. That's where Kim Belair used to work, Ubisoft, before she started Sweet Baby Inc. You can even look at Sweet Baby Inc.'s website where it literally says this. Our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video games industry. We aim to make games more engaging, more fun, more meaningful, and more inclusive for everyone. AKA, we are here to promote woke ideology. That's what that says. It's on their website. It tells you what their goals are. Despite all this, Belair attempted to gaslight viewers of the Black Girl Gamers YouTube channel by offering her own definition of what it means to wokeify gaming. She says this: it's the greater movement right towards a lot of like very far right thinking and a lot of, very regressive material that's kind of just being pushed out across a lot of different, or at least like a lot of the audiences of a lot of different industries are currently kind of talking about that. And obviously the political landscape is kind of led to a lot of this. No, she's the one who's actually pushing the regressive thinking. She's the one who's pushing disordered lifestyles. She's pushing this idea that men can become women. That's not progressive at all. That's degenerate. That is regressive. It's loony. It's psychotic. I think for a lot of people, it really comes down to they see a change that they themselves did not expect. Who thought that men could become women and that video game developers would be promoting it? No one did. It was unheard of 5 years ago. It's absolute insanity. She's like, oh, it's just normal. It's just normal. Why aren't you accepting this degeneracy on? Why aren't you guys accepting it? They see a change that they can't fathom that their beloved companies or their beloved teams, whatever make themselves. No, they wouldn't do this because we know that these teams wouldn't do this. They weren't doing this 5-10 years ago. There's clearly something happened where they started making games like this. So they kind of assume that anyone who comes in who looks like myself or other members of my team are the interlopers. Our job can only be tied to our identity. Well, you literally admit that. You've gone on record talking about that. That's what you say you do. She then attempted to address what she sees as misinformation about her company, despite her repeated statements about what her company does, which we've covered a bunch of them. Speaking of misinformation, I think the biggest thing for us during this campaign is that I would say that any kind of sensitivity work or consulting work in cultural consultation probably represents about 15% of our work, where the vast majority of it is actually writing, narrative design, joining writing teams, helping support writing teams, sometimes being the entire writing team for a project, or helping with mission design. But the part that really, really gets everyone assuming that we can't possibly do that other work because all we are is, DEI. Well, that's literally what you say you are. We just went over all of this. That's exactly what you say you are. And you're literally like this whole thing, sensitivity work or consulting work and cultural consultation. Well, they're all the same thing. You're all just pushing the woke agenda. Just because you want to segment it out into like, oh, we're actually doing writing work. That isn't really about our cultural consultation. Well, you're still pushing the same agenda. So you can try and differentiate them all you want. You're still pushing the woke, regressive, degenerate, evil ideology. That's what you're doing. We became labeled as this DEI company. You literally labeled that yourself. I mean, we just read what's on your website. You labeled that. You labeled that yourself. When the facts of the way that we work is that someone calls in and says, hey, we've made a bunch of choices. We'd love for you to either help write, help look at them, help talk to us. And even sometimes our cultural consultation is as specific, it's job consultation, that we had to hire a meteorologist at one point to do a consult on a project. Seems weird that a video game developer would need to hire Sweet Baby Inc. to locate a meteorologist. It's like, why don't they just call up the local news station? I don't think it's that hard. Instead, they're going through a middleman to call the local news station. Like, that's what she's saying. Sweet Baby Inc. is middlemen here to hire a meteorologist when they could have just done it, had one of their guys do it themselves. Because it's all about the DI agenda, the ESG money. That's why they hire companies like Sweet Baby Inc. so they can tick the box that Kim Belair says she doesn't want to do. They can tick the box and get the ESG money. That was flowing a couple of years ago. Free flowing, easy money. Grums has talked about this. Belair goes on and says this. And I think that idea of authenticity for people, if you say like, oh, we hired a lawyer because we have to, write about lawyers, no one would ever bat an eye. But they can't imagine that you'd want to bring in someone from a specific background or country or experience to talk about this. No one is criticizing you for that. We're criticizing you because you're hiring people to push the woke agenda, which you literally admit you're doing. I mean, she's literally trying to gaslight people into thinking that they're just hiring lawyers, hiring meteorologists who don't have an agenda, who aren't trying to push the woke agenda. That's exactly what this company does. It's literally on your website. You've said it in multiple interviews over the past 4 or 5 years. This is what your company does. We know what you do. Why are you lying? We know why you're lying. Because you want power, you want control, and you want to enrich yourself. And you want to use this agenda to do it. She goes on, and I think there's this idea that, you know, if a game company is reaching out to external, that's because they're missing something or they can't handle something, not because, you know, in the very real world of creation across many different media, people talk to each other. People have writers' rooms. Directors and writers of huge movies go to each other's houses and talk and do, you know, punch-ups to each other's scripts. And that's kind of, you know, how creativity works. But this is what it's become. Oh, she's just comparing herself to punching up a script. Just that woke, pushing that woke agenda. It's just punching up a script, just making it better. That's all we're doing here. No, we know what you're doing. The track record speaks for itself. Your previous comments speak for itself. You're not kidding anyone. You're not fooling anyone. You're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes, except for people like Ash Parrish and J.N. Lopez, who are similarly trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. But more and more, they're getting exposed by their own words because they're all liars. All liars. So I think we should just point out that Sweet Baby Inc., again, labels itself as a DEI company. It's right here. See it on their website. They haven't changed it, which kind of just blows up everything she has to say here. And then, as I said, we were going to conclude here with what Bishop Barron has to say. This is what he told Angelus News about the woke ideology and woke ideologues like Belair. They advocate a deeply antagonistic social theory whereby the world is divided sharply into the two classes of oppressors and oppressed. That's exactly what Kim Belair does. She talked about that in this interview about the marginalized voices. So that's exactly what she is doing there. She's dividing the world into these two classes of oppressors and oppressed. Second, they relativize moral value and see classical morality as an attempt by the ruling class to maintain itself in power. I think she does that in this interview as well. If we go back up here, you find it, where she talks about it's far right people and regressive thinking. I think that's exactly what she's doing there. She's trying to relativize morality for her own political gain. Third, they focus not so much on the individual as on racial and ethnic categories, and hence they endorse the idea of collective guilt and recommend a sort of reverse discrimination to address the injustices of the past. She most definitely did that in that 2019 presentation, and she's talked about that on repeated occasions. We see that all as well, where she wants to take over the video game industry in that 2021 Inclusion FX interview. Fourth, they tend to demonize the market economy and the institutions of democracy as part of a superstructure defending the privileged. Fifth, they push toward equity of outcome throughout the society rather than equality of opportunity. So I don't think she actually does that fourth point. I think she's trying to use the market economy and the institutions to push the woke agenda. And then obviously in that fifth point, I definitely think that she does do that through the narratives that she's creating, through the cultural consultation that they do, definitely pushing that equity of outcome rather than equality of opportunity. And then finally, Bishop Barron says this: wokeism employs divisive and aggressive strategies of accusation that are contrary to the gospel demand to love our enemies. It's exactly what she is doing throughout this entire interview. She's doing it implicitly by saying, if you oppose me, you are a bigot. You are a racist. You are a homophobe. You are a transphobe. That is exactly what she is saying over and over and over again, where she puts herself as the victim, and anyone criticizing her is the aggressor, when in fact it is the opposite. She is the one on the attack, and she is mad when people are counterattacking, punching back, pushing back, saying no to her woke agenda. Bishop Barron concludes saying, suffice it to say that Catholic social teaching stands to thwart all of this. It wants social justice, of course, but not on woke terms. Its heroes are not Marx, Nietzsche, and Foucault, but rather Isaiah, Amos, Jeremiah, Jesus the Lord, King of Kings, Ambrose, Aquinas, and Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who is now a canonized saint. So I think he puts it really clear there why we oppose woke ideology, why woke ideology is wrong, why woke ideology is evil, and why we oppose what Kim Belair is doing. And we will not let her gaslight people, not let her try to claim victim status when she is the one attacking the video game industry. She is the one trying to push this disease, this ideological infection into the world and using the medium of video games to do so. And we will continue to call this stuff out. We will continue to boycott companies that consult with Sweet Baby Inc. We will continue to boycott companies that push this agenda, whether or not Sweet Baby Inc. is working with them or not. But let me know what you guys make of Kim Belair's most recent comments here. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.